Well, welcome back to the Radical Dreamers. We are currently outside the Chamber of Death, which Riddell told us to go to in order to get the thing that we need to make the old man wake up. And in between all of that nonsense, we went back to the clock room place and got the Einslander. That's what we need for this. So let's go ahead and go inside now that we've got the sword. Well, this place is just as creepy as I remember. Lovely, grumbled Kid. She was looking at the stains on the wall. The ceiling had been pulled back up, but that was no reason to believe it might not come grinding down again at any moment. Bearing in mind what Riddell had told us the room was called, it definitely wasn't somewhere we wanted to linger. Quickly, hissed Magil before crouching down and examining the ground for clues. Kid and I crouched down too. What were we even looking for, though? What could the old man have left in this room that would help us bring him back to reality? The flagstones of the floor were smeared with a black, gooey substance which gave off an odd, rotten aroma. I shook my head, trying to drive an uncomfortable thought from my mind. Kid saw me and clearly wasn't doing much better herself. She slowly turned, positioning herself so that she was facing away from the stains on the wall. There was no point in thinking like that. I just had to try. But then... the door slammed shut and the gears ground into life. Here we bloody go again. We have to stop it. If we don't deal with the trap, we'll never find what we're looking for. The ceiling sank lower and lower. We ducked our heads, desperately trying to avoid the blades that jutted out from the bottom. Kid looked to me and screamed, "The sword! Use the Einslander!" What? How do you use a sword? You want to plunge the sword into the ground, and yes, this is timed, so do it quickly. There! I drove the sword into the floor with all my might. A shock ran through the room. Beams of light scattered from the blade, covering the floor and walls and then racing upward. The ceiling gave an almighty judder, then stopped. We made it. I sank to the floor helplessly, my heart racing. Hey, what's that? Kid was pointing at part of the wall. It was where we'd seen the message written in blood. Guess we found what we were looking for. Part of the wall had collapsed, revealing a cavity behind what had looked like a piece of solid stone. Inside, I could see something glinting faintly in the darkness. Kid reached in with her fingertips, carefully extracting whatever it was from within. It was a slender ring with a delicately engraved design that looked like overlapping ferns. The kid was adorned with several small rubies in a pattern that resembled a bunch of grapes. The crest of acacia. This must be an Acacian Signet. Kid put the ring on her middle finger where it sat uneasily. It didn't seem to be her size. The rubies gave off an eerie glint. Right, let's not spend any time in here than we have to. We'd managed to foil the trap and retrieve the Acacian Signet. I left the Einslander where it stood, and we exited the room. Okay, so now that we are done with that, we want to head back downstairs, and we want to go past the terrace. So we're just going to go straight, essentially. So just go ahead and continue on past everything. Oh, Kid stopped in her tracks, signaling to us with a hand behind her back. She drew her knife and stared into the darkness. We heard the clinking of metal from just up ahead. Goblin guards. It wasn't likely there'd be anyone else going for a nighttime stroll around the manor wearing armor. Can we suggest a tactical retreat? A tactical retreat? How about a tactical boot up the arse instead? Look, you're never gonna get good at thieving if you keep acting like such a bloody chicken. Having rejected my suggestion, Kid seemed to take great pleasure in putting the boot in for good measure. They won't know what hit him, she shouted, leaping into the battle. Caught on the back foot, I fumbled with my knife. Okay, well, we fought them before. We've got 5 of them, and let's see if we can survive this. They've got Morning Rod and whatever. There were 5 of them in total. They weren't any ordinary goblins, though. Having been well looked after in this palatal manor, they had grown to be even bigger than Magil. Each of them was carrying the manor goblin's trademark, a morning star consisting of a rod and a heavy spiked iron ball and chain. Wait, or is it a flail? I could never remember, and I didn't have time to think much more about it. A goblin came rushing at me, swinged its spiked bald head. We want to just charge. I held out my knife in front of me in an attempt to parry the attack somehow. Suddenly the goblin disappeared. I looked to the side to see it buried in the wall, arms and legs akimbo. Did you really expect to stop a morning star with only a knife? Your stupidity will get you killed. I'm good though, shouted Magil, turning to face down 2 more of the goblins. Alright, let's go ahead and finish off the goblin. I grabbed the morning star with both hands and swung it down with all my might. Wham! There was a dull thud as the iron ball crashed into the goblin's helmet. It wouldn't be getting up again anytime soon. Alright, let's look at Kid. Kid was squaring off against two of the goblins. Their dull, lumbering attacks couldn't touch her as she deftly sidestepped each and every one of them, striking back nimbly with her knife held in both hands. That was Kid's style, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, but stings make for tough going against enemies that can really take a beating. Both goblins were covered in cuts, but their attacks were as powerful as ever. I rushed in to help Kid deal with one of them. The enemy hadn't noticed me yet. I took my time and chose my target. Let's go ahead and stab it in the back. I thrust my knife forward. The blade plunged deep into the goblin's back, and then I couldn't pull it out. I just planted my foot on its back and started heaving as hard as I could when I sensed it glowering at me from above. I slowly looked up, my fear mounting, and then sprung away as fast as I could the moment I saw its face. Incandescent with rage, the goblin chased after me, swinging its morning star overhead. Thud! I heard something falling down behind me. I looked back and saw not the goblin, but Magil. The goblin was now firmly implanted in the wall next to the other one from before. I breathed a sigh of relief. You're a lifesaver, mate, but there wasn't time to finish thanking him. A swift kick from Kid saw to that. Be more bloody careful, will ya? Try using your bloody head before you go sticking your knife where it don't belong, she yelled as I picked myself up from the floor. Come now, Kid, he was only trying to save you. Why not give your knight in shining armor a kiss? As if. Are we okay, though? I was doing great. I felt like nothing could stop me. Good, okay. Just trying to stay alive at this point, so there is no more healing from here on out. All right, but anyway, we want to actually go, we want to continue on the path. We just want to go straight until we get to some doors. Eventually you're going to reach some stairs, and we're going to go ahead and go, we're going to continue onward past the stairs. We continued onward past where the stairs and the side passage emerged into the main corridor. We found ourselves in front of some ornate double doors. Let's go ahead and go inside. Kid gently pushed the heavy doors open and peeked inside. Doesn't look like anyone's in there. It seemed to be the main hall of the manor. There was a massive table, beautiful decorations on the walls, and thick columns decorated with sculptures of birds and beasts. Fixed to the wall in the back towered a tremendous pipe organ like a burnished black mountain. Dozens of candles provided a dim, flickering light, sending the corners of the room dancing in and out of shadow. Several enormous portraits glowered down from high on the wall. Were these members of Lynx's family? I was busy staring at a painting depicting a young husband and wife when I realized that their eyes had turned to look right at me. Okay, they hadn't. Don't worry, this isn't about to turn into some dumb ghost story. It just looked that way because of the way the flickering light of the candles reflected against the glossy oil paints. Obviously. Probably. This place gives me the creeps, and get a load of all of those ugly mugs. There ain't nothing for us here. Let's look somewhere else. Neither Magil nor I had any objections. We left the hall and returned to the corridor. Okay, so now that we have done all of that, we want to actually go... We want to go down the stairs. We want to go down the stairs. And then we want to... Yeah, we want to go through... Let's see. We want to go to the left, which is the atrium. We're going to go through the atrium. This is where we met the fish piranha things. And we're going to go ahead and press on. All right, so we got left and right, and we're going to head to the dungeon. We continued on down the corridor, eventually reaching an old, rather sturdy-looking door. This is where we're going. This place again. I hope this would be the last time I'd have to come here. We're going to go ahead and go inside. Having retrieved the Acacian Signet, we returned to the old man's cell. As soon as we got there, Magil took a step forward and grabbed onto the bars. They creaked and groaned as he heaved at them, gritting his teeth as he summoned every ounce of his might. Slowly, they bowed apart. He stepped into the cell through the gap, and Kid and I followed. The old man was exactly as we'd left him, staring into the space and muttering meaningless words. Kid walked over to him and crouched down. She grabbed him by the collar and yelled at him, "Wakey, wakey, Granddad! We've got a few questions for you. Here, get an eyeful of this. Ring any bells, Kid waved the Acacian Signet in his face, shaking him roughly all the while. The old man's head lolled as he limply allowed himself to be manhandled. Can you get her to stop? I looked at Magil in horror. Is this how we're gonna break through his shell? Fear not, this approach is as good as any. But do we even have the right to drag the poor man back into reality like this? Hasn't he suffered enough? I am prepared to do anything to achieve our goal. Magil stared straight through me with that ice-cold gaze. Oh, an Acacian Signet. The symbol of our vows, bestowed only upon sworn Acacia dragoons. A low voice, almost a moan. I spun around in surprise. His eyes began to cloud over once more. So my former allies have finally come for me. I am to blame. It is because of my indiscretion that the frozen flame was stolen, and that all of the Acacia dragoons, only I remain here in the manor. But now all is well, for you have returned. Oh, Magil, Zorinda, where have you been all this time? Did you return to Lake Stoic? Never mind all that, Granddad. Where is the frozen flame? Give us a clue, anything. Come on, out with it. I couldn't decide if Kid sounded more annoyed or more desperate. The frozen flame, the old man looked momentarily confused, and then a wan smile crossed his face. My word, Lady Riddell, it has been far too long since I last had the pleasure. Why, you need only turn the third candlestick from the left as you enter the main hall. That will open the underground vault, as you know. Kid wrapped her arms around the old man and held him tight. And then in a trembling voice, she whispered, I'm sorry. I promise we'll get it back. Huh? Ah! The man recoiled in horror and then began to sob once more. I am to blame. It is all my fault. Forgive me. Forgive me. Look, if you want to get out of here, now's your chance. But it was no use. He was too busy cowering and wailing to hear me. We're all done here, Serge. We can't help him, and there's things we need to be doing. Thank you, I whispered to the old man before following Kate and Magil out of the dungeon. Okay, so we're going to be heading back up these stairs. So we're going to go back through... Nope. We want to go back towards the atrium, which we need to walk past. Or go through, I should say. Let's go ahead and continue on. We do not want to turn back because we'll go back to the dungeon, which is not exactly where I want to be. Okay, and then we want to take the right passage back up the stairs. Okay, so in this case, we want to go back toward the main hall. Suddenly, the darkness felt opaque. Something like a thick haze floated in the air in front of us. And then it took form, like someone blowing smoke into a person-shaped bottle. It was robed in a ragged shroud, and its sunken eyes glinted menacingly. It was the burning hatred that lingers even after death given form, a being driven by all hatred of all living things. A ghost, bugger, that's us out, Kid bit her lip. There wasn't anything she or I could do to deal with an enemy that had no physical body. A voice boomed out behind me. Magil had begun casting a spell. Let's see, let's try and slip past the ghost. My eyes met Kid's and Magil's, and without a word being exchanged between all of us, a plan was hatched. They'd both already seen an opening. Magil quickly lobbed a spell at the ghost to distract it, and we slipped away while its attention was elsewhere. The ghost suddenly swelled in size, attempting to trap us within its spectral embrace and drain our life force. I could feel an incredible cold at the tips of my toes. I'd barely touched the ghost, but I could feel that a huge amount of energy had been drained from me in just that brief moment. But there was no time to dwell on this brush with death. Having spotted an opening between the ghost and the wall, we quickly slipped through it and were away. Alright, so let's go ahead and head into the main hall of the manor. Kid pushed open the heavy door as quietly as she could and peered inside. Looks like the coast is clear. We stepped into the main hall. Dozens of candles provided a dim, flickering light, sending the corners of the room dancing in and out of shadow. The great hall was filled with a heavy silence, a silence unbroken save for the ticking of a large clock that slowly counted the passage of time as if waiting for something. Several portraits glared down at us with cold eyes. We moved through the feeble glow of the candles. Third candlestick from the left, whispered Kid. 1, 2, 3, there. She reached out towards it. I held my breath as I watched. Say your prayers, Lynx. We're coming for ya. Kid turned the candlestick. The room trembled with a sudden rhythmic rumbling sound as if a massive gear was turning. What's that? For a moment I felt a strange sensation, as if I was floating. Do you feel that? I started to stagger. The entire room seems to be moving downward, came the reply from Magil. Couldn't quite believe it, but I also couldn't deny the feeling of downward motion. The main hall was sinking into the earth. And then another rumble. The room's descent rapidly accelerated. A cold sweat dripped from my back, my heart filled with a mixture of fear and anticipation. What was waiting for us down there? The frozen flame? Our prize at the end of this little adventure? But what was it really? Would it live up to our expectations? I tightened my fists, which were slick with sweat. What were Kid and Magil thinking? The room remained veiled in silence. As if in response to my thoughts, a quiet voice came from next to me. It was Kid. I looked over to see her standing stiffly, staring forward with her hands clenched into fists. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a losing battle, a fight I'll never win, no matter what I do. It was a side of her I'd never witnessed before. Even from this angle, I could see fear and doubt flickering across her face. I felt a tender sting in my heart. What are you fighting? What are you fighting against? Good question. Fate, maybe? Life, even? Not sure I can put me finger on it exactly. It ain't Lynx. I mean, sure, I'm here to fight him, but that's different. It ain't clear-cut like that. I feel like there's another me inside me, one that's just sitting there looking out at how empty and pointless everything I do is. That's the best way I can describe it anyhow. Okay, listen to me, load of bloody nonsense, eh? She smiled ruefully. I didn't know exactly what she meant, but I felt like I knew broadly what she was getting at. She may have talked tough, but underneath it all, she felt fear and uncertainty, just like the rest of us. I mean, that was no great revelation in and of itself, but hearing her say it out loud gave me a strange sense of relief. I stole another sidelong glance at her. Her expression was different, more mature somehow. Sorry, mate, you didn't need to hear that. Not exactly me trademark brand o' carefree banter, eh? She stuck out her tongue. Normal service had been resumed. Or so it seemed for a second. Thanks, Serge, and you too, Mage, she said, suddenly serious again. Couldn't have made it this far without you both. Listen, if we don't get another chance to... Huh? You know what? Forget about it. She closed her eyes and forced a smile. I wasn't sure how to respond, so true to form, I just stared at her some more. I could have sworn I caught a flicker of a grin across Magil's face too. He was standing just at the edge of my field of vision, arms crossed and eyes closed. But maybe it was just my imagination. A contemplative silence descended as the hall continued its journey down into the bowels of the manor. A crash split the silence as if we'd collided with something. Screech! A loud metal scraping filled the air. The room rocked and finally came to a halt. Looks like the end of the line. All change. The swelling grandeur of the organ suddenly filled the air. No one had so much as touched it, and yet the keys and the pedals were moving by themselves. The melody it played was both unsettling and sad. Funeral tune, is it? Way to greet your guests. Kid took a long stride forward, then turned to face me and Magil. Come on, let's go. Magil and I nodded our assent. Kid grinned, then turned back to the door. I'm coming for you, Lynx. This is the end for you. And with that, she led us from the hall. We continued down a long, dark corridor, the walls slick with condensation. The air was thick and heavy, as though ripe with the stench of death. Were we really getting close to Lynx's hidden vault at last? I mean, was there any turning back now for any of us? There was something strange about Kid that night. Magil didn't seem to be his usual self either. To begin with, it was vanishingly rare for him to speak so much, let alone to show any kind of emotion. What happened to make them change like that? Unable to take the silence anymore, I decided to speak. I had to ask the question that had been on my mind this whole time. What is the frozen flame? Is the frozen flame really just a jewel? There was only silence in return, and then, when it seemed like no one would reply at all, Magil spoke. His low voice echoed in the corridor. It is a sacred stone that cures all ills, heals all wounds, and grants eternal life. Or so some still believe. In truth, it is part of a tremendous rock that fell from the skies long, long ago. That rock was the source of the hitherto unknown power with which mankind's hidden potential was unlocked. You could say that it was humanity's dreams made manifest, but it is not always good to have one's dreams come true. Many were bewitched by that great power. Some were led astray by it. It even led to a kingdom's ruin. A kingdom once prosperous, yet now little more than fragments and dust, its name lost to history. For a moment, I thought I heard a hint of pain and sadness in Magil's voice, but maybe it was just my nerves. Wait, how do you know all of this, Magil? He said nothing. He only stared at me with his piercing dark eyes and then continued onward in silence. For a while, only the sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor, and then Kid gave a doubtful humph. Look, I don't know if all that stuff about the frozen flame is true or not. It's neither here nor there to me. She raised a fist. We're here to settle the score with Lynx by nicking the thing. That's all I know, and it's all I want to know. What had Lynx seen in the frozen flame? Why had it been worth risking so much for? We trudged on down the dark passageway, each of us alone with our thoughts. Concentrating on my footsteps lessened the burden of my worries somewhat, and I felt a renewed vigor, to a degree. Suddenly, Magil stopped in his tracks. Wait! Huh? Kid turned around, puzzled. Just then, a powerful light surged across the floor, and a ring-shaped sigil appeared. Damn it, a blood circle. Kid and Magil were at least quick enough to try and jump clear. But they weren't quite quick enough. The three of us were trapped in a circle of blinding light. The sigil rotated left and right with us at the center, cutting off all routes of escape. Yeah, we're trapped. A wall of heat and wind blew up around us, and swirling lines and spirals of light assailed us whenever we turned. Don't let the light mesmerize you. Cover your eyes, shouted Magil, raising a hand over his mask. Turn with the light, not against it. There has to be a way out. What? I barely even understand what's going on. Kid's elbow brushed against the wall of light surrounding us, sending sparks flying. Nyeh! Be careful! Merely to touch it is more than enough to harm you. Stay well back. I slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, looking for a gap to escape through. So the first thing we want to do is turn right 3 times. 3 steps to the right. There, I see it. That's our way through. I found a gap in the wall of light and carefully walked through it. Kid, Magil, this way. We managed to get through the barrier unscathed, but we weren't out of the woods yet. There was still another wall of light swirling with a great wind in front of us. I slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, looking for a gap to escape through. We want to go to the left 2 times. 2 steps to the left. There, I see it. That's our way through. I found a gap in the wall of light and carefully walked through it. Kid, Magil, this way. We managed to get through the barrier unscathed, but we weren't out of the woods yet. There was still another wall of light swirling with a great wind in front of us. I slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, looking for a gap to escape through, and we want to go to the right twice to finish this up. If you did the griffin stuff where he was a mouse and then he was a griffin, this is what he tells you. This is how he tells you to escape. There, I see it. That's our way through. I found a gap in the wall of light and carefully walked through it. Kid, Magil, this way. Suddenly, my body felt light and I staggered 2 or 3 steps forward. We were back in the deserted passageway we'd been walking down before the blood circle had appeared. The sigil had vanished from the floor and everything was silent, as if nothing had ever been amiss. And then I looked up. Looks like we finally made it, boys. Kid strolled up to the door with a wicked grin on her face. The true frozen flame awaits. Magil's eyes gave a glint from behind his mask, like glass catching moonlight in the darkness of night. Let's go. Kid reached for the handle. So this is the place, huh? Kid narrowed her eyes, straining to see her surroundings in the darkness. A vast, pitch-black expanse surrounded us whichever way we looked. It was as if we'd entered an impossibly vast cave. We were in a place forgotten by time, unknown to the world, hidden deep within the bowels of night. A gentle crimson light hovered in the darkness. The frozen flame! All right, now it's ours. The light of the flame ebbed and waned gently, as if responding to Kid's voice. What the heck is this place? There's mountains of bloody rubble everywhere. Magil took a step further into the room, and he said in a whisper that was almost a groan, "No, it can't be." Ah, but it is. The ruins of the lost kingdom of mages. A voice drifted down through the darkness from above. Kid looked up in shock. "Lynx, I'll kick your flea-bitten arse so hard you'll kiss the moon." Kid pulled her knife from her belt and threw it as hard as she could. It fell to the floor with a clang, as if knocked out of the air by some unseen hand. Still the same impetuous child as ever, I see. That's no way to greet an old friend. "Smarmy bastard." Kim gritted her teeth with rage. "And you, Shadow Dweller, I'll have none of your tricks this time. You must think me a fool if you believe I'll fall for that again." Magil, who had been quietly slipping into the darkness that surrounded us, stopped dead in his tracks. So this was the infamous Lynx. "Bro, that's not Lynx. What is this?" The lord of this deadly manor, the man who had murdered the closest thing Kid had to a family, who had assassinated General Viper and eradicated the Order of the Acacia Dragoons. "A pleasure as always, my dear Kid, and I must say you followed the trail of breadcrumbs I laid for you admirably closely, my greedy little sneak thief." "What the bloody—" She stepped forward, bristling. Lynx narrowed his eyes as his lips twisted into a snarl. "You know what I want, Kid. Give me the stone you carry." The stone? Did Kid have some kind of jewel I didn't know about? "Peh, don't know what you're on about, mate." She just about managed to recover her composure, narrowing her eyes scornfully at her old foe. "Spare me the act, child. I know you have it. I know she gave it to you. Hand over the time egg. Now." "The what?" Whatever it was, I'd never heard of it. "You're dreaming if you think I'll give it to the likes of you," Kid shot back. "It's all I have left of her. I'll never let go of it, not for anyone and definitely not for you. I'll tell you what's gonna happen, you bastard. First I'm gonna take the frozen flame and then I'm gonna ram it down your throat." Incorrigible young fool. I was hoping this might be a civilized exchange. Alas, it seems my words will only fall on deaf ears, and you are determined to repeat your past errors. Lynx moved his hand to the grip of the ornate golden saber that hung from his belt. "Last time I showed you mercy and let you leave with your life. That was a mistake, one which I mean to correct. Serge, Magil, stay back." Kid took a step forward, glaring at Lynx, her gaze unflinching. "This ends here and now. You pay for what you've done. You'll pay for what you did to Luca." With a scream, Kid leapt into the air like a bird taking flight. Her foot lashed out in a scything kick aimed right at the side of Lynx's head. But there was no contact where Lynx had been mere moments before. Now there was only empty space. Kid landed and immediately launched herself back into the air, putting the full force of her momentum into another kick. This time, Lynx leaned back, letting Kid's foot swing past only a hair's breadth from his nose. And then it was Lynx's turn. He lashed out with his saber, carving an arc through the air in front of him. Kid was ready for him, however, and had already jumped back to a safe distance. The two glared at each other from mere footsteps apart. "At least you had the decency to prepare a little better than last time," Lynx purred. A red line appeared on Kid's cheek, slowly coalescing into a drop of blood. "Kid!" In a flash, she launched herself into yet another attack. Lynx dodged to the side and then made to strike her with the hilt of his saber. Kid moved awkwardly to avoid the attack, losing her footing, and then Lynx was on her like a bird of prey before she could fully recover. There was a gasp and a cough as Lynx drove his knee into the pit of her stomach. Kid collapsed. A steady stream of red dripped from her lips. "Will that be all, girl?" Lynx gave Kid a merciless kick to the side, sending her flying. She landed on a pile of rubble, her body rolling until she hit a large stone pillar, and there she lay, lifelessly still. "Kid! Kid!" I screamed her name as I charged toward Lynx, but Magil was there already. He flew through the darkness, a part of the shadows, before crashing down on Lynx like a bolt from the blue. Lynx jumped back and countless threads of light flew from his fingertips towards Magil. With a droning hum, the threads of light surrounded Magil, crossing over one another. They spread to form a lattice of light that gave off a blinding glare and trapped Magil where he stood. What is this? Magil staggered and groaned, attempting to shield his eyes with his hands. It is a simple enough spell, my shadowy friend, for those inclined to learn it, and one which, sadly for you, leaves no darkness in which to hide. Lynx leered at Magil with a venomous grin. You've been quite the thorn in my side. I'll let you live long enough to regret it. Magil struggled and groaned. I had to do something. Kid and Magil needed me. But what was I going to do? I'm gonna go ahead and run to Kid. Kid, I ran over to where she lay. She was flat out, still collapsed where she had fallen, and blood still ran from her mouth. Kid, say something! I crouched down next to her, glancing at her face in a panic. She groaned, and then she began to stir, her face twisted with pain. Serge. It's okay, Kid, I'm here. How touching, although I would be more concerned about my own well-being if I were you. The voice came from behind me. It felt as if ice water had been poured down my neck. I jumped to my feet and turned around. Lynx was looking down at me with a cold, emotionless stare. By the way, no matter what you do, you end up here. Just don't let the menus time out. Any friend of Kid's is certainly no friend of mine. Forgive me, but I cannot permit you to leave this place alive. Before I realized it, his hand had shot out toward me. His claw-like fingers clamped around my throat. I couldn't breathe. Tightening his grip, Lynx lifted me bodily until my feet were dangling in the air. I could feel his talons mercilessly digging deeper and deeper into my neck. Panic filled my mind. Look, Kid. See your friend? See him suffer. This is your doing. This is your hand around his neck. Kid's breathing was ragged and blood still dripped from her lips. Opening an eye, she groggily raised her head. But she couldn't get up. She didn't have the strength. Serge, give me the time egg. Do you even know what it is? I suspect not. Think of it as a concentrated pocket of space. With the frozen flame and the time egg in hand, one can bend the fabric of space and time and rewrite the past. There are errors that I mean to correct, mistakes in the past that must be set right. Lynx's narrow, emotionless eyes returned to my face. How long before he perishes, I wonder? I struggled to breathe but could only make choking sounds. Kid screamed my name. Decide, will you watch the boy die or relent? Does his life mean nothing to you? I can't! She balled her hands into fists and dropped her gaze. My vision started to fade. And then I heard her voice as she struggled to speak through the pain. I'm sorry, Serge, but I swore I'd sacrifice anything to stop Lynx. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. It's all I could do to force the words out past Lynx's icy grip. I was starting to black out. Was this really how it was going to end? Ah, for crying out loud. Fine, you win. Here, have your damn rock. Lynx's grip on my throat loosened. Groaning with pain, Kid reached a shaky hand into her shirt. I knew you would come around in the end. Lynx threw my body to the ground, then walked over toward her. Just shut up and take it, you bastard. It's all you deserve. With all the strength she could still muster, Kid lashed out at Lynx with her right hand. Gah! He leapt back in a desperate attempt to evade the blow. But it was too late. Kid's nails, sharp as a cat's claws, raked mercilessly into his face. Lynx roared with pain. He staggered, clutching his left eye. Blood oozed through the gaps in his fingers. You wretched little chit of a girl. Lynx stood awkwardly, still clutching at the wound on his face. The fingers of his free hand arched into furious talons as he walked back toward Kid, who still lay on the ground. I will kill you all. He kicked her hard, concentrating all his wrath and venom into the blow. Kid gasped as all the wind was knocked out of her, yet more blood ran from her mouth and her body rolled across the floor. Kid! I yelled hoarsely, clutching my burning throat with one hand. Lynx turned his head slowly to look at me, one eye fixating on me coldly as it came into view. He took a step toward me. Yes, perhaps it would be better to start with you. My dear Kid, rest assured that your friend's death will be the most elaborate and most painful one. You will truly know what it means to suffer, boy. I will put you through the same suffering as I did that Luca woman. Kid's body stirred with shock and horror. Her eyes slowly opened, fixating on Lynx. They were wild eyes, stained with the blood that poured from her brow. Gritting her teeth, she staggered to her feet. Lynx! Lynx! And then an explosion of light burst forth from the frozen flame. Another light began to form from somewhere near Kid's chest, resonating with the light from the frozen flame. The twin lights entwined, twirling slowly upward. And as it rose, the golden spiral spread. No, this can't be. Lynx stood motionless, transfixed by the spectacle. Was this the Time Egg's power? Kid screamed as a raging blaze of light engulfed her. I'll never let you do it again. I'll never let you steal from me again. Bathed in the glow, her body shook. Blood-red tears dripped from her eyes as they took on a distant look, and then she collapsed to the ground as if all the life had gone out of her. I heard a voice. It was quiet and still, like the evening. It has come to pass. Kid is retracing her lost memories back through time, back to the Lost Kingdom. It was through her power that the kingdom fell, that it was swallowed in the all-encompassing vortex of time. In her grief, she wished to disappear. Her past, her future, she wanted it all to sink into the void, to be lost in this seething whirl of time. She despised what she had done. She closed herself off from all that she saw and heard and cursed her very existence. But the stone wished for her to live. The hands of her clock were rewound, her memories unraveled. The stone gave her a chance to begin again. The stone had both the power and the will to bring all of this about. Sinking through the sea of time, she drifted here, a mere babe, her memories a blank slate. The time egg shattered, its fragments raining down on the world, becoming shards of sorrow and anguish. The world around us drifted into pieces. It swallowed us, engulfed us. We were consumed, locked into the void. And then a girl's scream echoed in the darkness. That voice, was that Kid? It sounded just like... No, this is all wrong. The black vortex, it surrounds us. No, stop. Where am I? I have lost everything, and now I can but wander. The world drifts, the time is a blur. There is only endless, unknowable sea. This is where time begins and ends. This is where all life finds peace. I see myself as a baby, crying next to my mother, an exhausted yet proud look upon her face. I see myself aged and wizened, waiting to succumb to death's embrace with a smile. I see countless incarnations of myself, walking time's intricate corridors as ghosts. This is a place where countless worlds overlap and infinite dreams play out. If only I could rest here for eternity. If only I could free myself of all my burdens and sleep here in this sea of dreams. But I hear it calling me. I hear the song. Kid, please. Can you hear me? Kid, say something. Kid, you've got to stay with me. Who's that? Who is calling me? Serge? Where am I? Kid, you're awake. I heard a song. It was beautiful. It was that song that Luca loved. Kid closed her eyes and her face glowed with a warm smile. I'll never forget that song. Makes me want to cry whenever I hear it. I'm just glad you're back. I felt like I was losing you, like you were going somewhere far, far away. Before I knew it, I was humming the song for you. I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but I wrote it when I was first started out as a musician. I knew you liked it, so Kid gave a gentle nod. It was you. You were the one who called me back. That was you calling me name. Thanks, Serge. It's okay. It's okay now. I'm back. Suddenly, she gasped with pain. Lynx's saber had plunged deep into her right shoulder. And towering over us was Lynx himself. I told you, kid. I told you I would kill you. She had no strength left to fight. What was I going to do? Let's either one. I'm gonna try and protect Kid. I threw myself over Kid's inert form. I had to protect her. Ha! You rushed needlessly to your grave, boy. Lynx glared coldly at me with his remaining eye. Alas, your time has come. He raised his saber high, preparing to strike. Enough. Stunned, we looked toward the intruder. You! There stood an old crone, her wizened features obscured by a heavy hood. How had she made it all the way down here? Lady Vera, and what have we done to bring poor's Magister General running, I wonder, he growled. It's been far too long, Lord Lynx. A pity that I seem not to have caught you at your best. The crone met Lynx's mad stare head on. I will take the frozen flame. After all, it seems you two have been quite unable to decide which of you should have it. She raised a hand and armed soldiers poured into the room. Magil lifted Kid to her feet. This seems like a good time to leave. Lynx snarled, "You'll regret this, witch." He kicked off from the floor and his body rose into the air. Then he turned his venomous glare on us. And you, Kid, you will pay for this with your life soon enough. You will never be safe from me. And with that, he disappeared like a puff of smoke. The crone lingered for a moment, her eyes resting on us. Kid, if you wish to try and steal the frozen flame again, you are welcome to try it anytime you please. We will be waiting. But you'll have to get out of here alive first. The soldiers drew their weapons and fell upon us. Darkness, heed my call. With Kid slumped against him, Magil spread his arms and drew his sigil in the air. Hurry, Serge, this way. I grabbed onto him and we plunged into blackness. Thanks to Magil's magic, we managed to escape the manor alive. But the lights of torches dotted the forest and we could hear soldiers calling to one another. We stopped briefly in the darkness of the woods and Kid leaned heavily on a tree, desperately trying to quiet her ragged breathing. It was a terrible wound she'd suffered, and it seemed to be taking its toll. Are you okay, Kid? Yeah, don't worry about me, mate. We're surrounded. It won't take long before they find us, said Magil, his eyes cautiously scanning the area. Kid raised her head to look at me. It's me and Magil they want. Get out of here, Serge. It's us they want, not you. What are you saying? I'm not leaving you here. Look at you. You can barely stand. It's nothing I can't handle, and besides, I've got Magil with me. If they catch you with us, they won't go easy on you. But I remembered everything. I remembered another me, a me from a long, long time ago. Slowly, Kid averted her gaze, looking up at the night sky. I have to go. The stars reflected in her eyes, and suddenly she looked like nothing more than an ordinary young girl with a sad, distant expression on her face. Kid. Don't worry, Serge. I'm okay. We'll meet again. Kid smiled. We'll meet again. Somewhere, someday. Sometime. Promise. Her eyes closed gently. I didn't manage to nick the frozen flame in the end, and I lost the time egg too, the only thing I had left of Luca's. But it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. There's something inside of me that shines brighter than any stupid jewel. The most important thing in the world. She opened her eyes again and fixed them on me. I could have lost myself in their depths forever. No one can take it from me. Not for as long as I live. There was nothing else in the world I wanted but this. I doubted I'd ever want anything again. I only wanted this moment. All the clocks in the world could have stopped right then and there for all I cared. And that was exactly what I wished for as I gazed at her. Goodbye, Serge. And thanks. She looked down and then turned away and disappeared into the darkness of the night. Would I ever see her again? Kid! Don't follow me, Serge. Please. Just don't. I strained to try and catch a glimpse of her as the last traces of her shadow vanished. Vanished toward a place I might never reach again. No, Kid! I leapt to my feet, meaning to chase after her, but a shadow soon blocked my path. Magil? Without saying a word, he slowly shook his head. Behind the mask, I saw a sadness in his eyes. Then the shadow withdrew and melted into the darkness. Magil, Kid, wait, don't leave me. I screamed into the night, but there was no reply. The black silence swallowed my cries. Kid. Kid. And so ends another tale. Perhaps one day I'll see Kid, Magil, and Riddell again. One day. Somewhere, at another time, in another world. Perhaps none of us will even realize it. But that's the story for another day. For now, I must put down my pen. I closed my grandfather's diary. And then from downstairs, I heard my mother calling. "Did you hear me? Your friend's here." Nimble footsteps charged up the stairs. The door flew open. In tumbled a young girl, a girl who seemed rather familiar. "Hey Serge, it's a beautiful day for adventuring. I found a run-down old manor off in the woods to the north. You want to go exploring? Come on, put the book down and let's get out of there. Get out there." And that's the main story of the Radical Dreamers. And I think that's the good ending. I think all the other, like, if you die or whatever, you end up with a bad ending and you can't really move on with the story. I haven't really explored all of it too much myself. I just, used a guide to get through it because honestly, as much as I love choosing my, do choose your own adventure games, I'm not particularly great at them. So it's not really my thing, to be completely honest with you. I kind of gather this is supposed to be another dimension story, because in the original, in Chrono Cross, you play as 2 different worlds, but there is potentially an infinite number of worlds. So I assume this is supposed to be one of those infinite number of worlds, and it's just not technically canonical with Chrono Cross. Also, yes, they did not translate the credits, which I do kind of find a bit weird, but that's okay. And I also I know the Radical Dreamers is technically an experiment that they were doing from what I've read. They were trying to figure out how they could do a choose your own adventure type situation like this, that's tied into another story. I think they did okay, the writing, and whoever did the translation for this did a pretty good job. So kudos on that one. I don't think the story is particularly interesting. I don't know what they did with Lynx, by the way. Obviously they were using the same characters, but they were different characters. So that's really weird. I know a lot of people think that Magil in this one is Guile, but that has been debunked apparently, that's not true. Square Enix was no, that's not actually true. So take with that as you will. I don't know why there's multiple Serges running around. Do people name, I guess they do. They do name their sons and grandkids after them. That just sounds like an ego thing. Stop naming your kids after you. It's weird. You're not little yous, they're their own people. That's just personal opinion there. Let's see. Anything else I really want to say about this? Not really. It's fine. I read a lot of visual novels myself, but I have to say some of it could have been a little bit better, but it was fine. It was fine. All right, and that was the credits. I love all the pink birds flying by. Are we done? Why are there so many birds? What in the Gaia's navel? Wait, is it Gaia's navel? That sounds about right. Finn! Also, Serge is wearing some weird clothes in all of these. That's all I have to say. All right, and you can see here that there are 7 endings to this, and that was the ending. And we're back to the beginning. So I do want to show off the other endings, but I'm not going to be as like thorough with them, I guess I should say. There is going to be some, I'll just show it off in the next episode, how to get to that and to kind of show it off. But there are 7, and there's actually another one too that's kind of hidden, but it's fine. Yeah, I don't actually have a lot of, I don't have resources to a good guide for this game. A lot of the guides that I found are from fan translations, which are fine, but wrong. And then most of the guides do not even focus on the random, like the random battles. The random battles can kill you, and so, but you can also go through the entire game and not experience any random battles, because I've definitely played through and not run into anything before. Like, I'll go through like corridors upon corridors, run into nothing, and then other times I'll play and I'll end up having like 2 or 3 battles. So just a heads up with that. There just isn't a good guide for this game at this point. The guides will work, and you just kind of have to, like, the words are different, like the place names are different, so just a heads up on that. It is what it is. Go explore the game. It comes with Chrono Cross, which I think is a great game, so might as well try it out at least once. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Next time I see you guys, I'll be in the other stuff, hopefully, so I will see you guys then.